So, John, I heard you just had a chance to play some New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe for what I think is the first time pretty much anywhere in the world. So where exactly were you? They had a chance to go hands-on with the game.
Yeah, so I was at MCM London Comic Con, and they had a New Super Mario Bros. U demo for pretty much the first time. I think it's also playable at Paris Games, but these events were kind of happening simultaneously, so Nintendo kind of rolled this demo out for the very first time to get hands-on. Unfortunately, we can't get any footage, but I did get to play the game for a while. And as someone who played through both New Super Mario Bros. U and New Super Luigi U on Wii U, I was... It's basically the same game, but there are some minor changes.
And I believe that starts, or maybe ends even, with the control changes, right? There's some tweaks there, you mentioned?
Yeah, so if you'll remember, in the Wii U version, to spin, you would either shake the controller or press ZR. But in the Switch version, if you press B again while in the air, you will do a spin. So you can keep just pressing the B button or the A button, whatever you jump with, and the character will just keep doing that little spin that keeps the momentum going. So that works with any controller, because we play with both the Joy-Con and the Pro Controller. So if you just keep pressing that jump button, you will do extra spins, which is something that I find really interesting. And speaking about spinning too, when you, in the Wii U version, to pick up items, it would sometimes come down to just shaking the controller, or pressing ZR. But they've kind of disabled ZR in this version, so to pick up things you can only shake the controller. And that might sound like a bit of a nuisance if you're playing in handheld mode, but I found in multiplayer it resulted in me throwing my my partners far less. Like there wasn't a single instance where I accidentally picked up the person next to me, which is great. I mean, it would have been even better if they put grab onto a different button entirely, but you'll no longer accidentally pick up your cooperative buddies, which is great. And those two are just really big changes to the game, I think.
So just to clarify real quick, they basically took one button which had two functions assigned to it and split it among two different buttons, is that right?
Exactly. So ZR will do the Super Mario World kind of spin, whereas shaking will grab.
Okay.
And maybe it's the case that there's an options menu where you can toggle these off and do whatever you want with that.
Right.
But in the demo, that's how it was. So there was no more accidental picking up, which is something that I absolutely love. But it is still co-op New Super Mario Bros., which means you will still bump into people, you will still bump on their heads, you will still accidentally jump on them and push them into a pit. And in my opinion, Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze is the superior co-op game, but this is still a much more casual take, I think, and it's still a lot of fun.
Well, that does sound good, and I do quite like those control changes because I want my teammates to know that when I picked them up and threw them off the cliff, that was no mistake, I meant to do that.
Exactly.
So what other changes did you pick up on, if any, beyond the controls?
So, I guess the big changes are the two new characters.
Right.
So, on the character select screen, I'm not sure if this was just for the demo, but in the demo, you have Mario, you have Luigi, Yellow Toad, Blue Toad is dead now, he's no longer here.
Rest in peace, Blue Toad.
He's replaced with Toadette and Nabbit, and basically for the demo, Toadette said easy, and Nabbit said easiest. So, I wonder if that's just for the demo, or if that's going to be in the main game or not, but... It does translate to the full game, because Toadette is basically a little bit of a accessible character. So I think we all know that she turns into Peachette at this point, which still makes no sense. But basically, what...
Did it make any more sense when you're playing it?
It makes no sense. And in fact, I was playing with my fiance, who she had no idea about this whole Peachette thing, and she was like, "What on earth is this?" But Peachette is basically the flying squirrel suit, but with a bit more mobility. So you kind of have her glide from Super Mario Bros. 2 now, but and that glide is kind of a variation of the squirrel suit glide. And when you press ZR while in the air, you'll just do that squirrel suit, that ramp up that the squirrel suit does. So it's very similar to the squirrel suit. It's just a little bit more overpowered.
Right.
So that's going to be great for players who aren't necessarily as good as the game as others. It gives them a bit more of a bump in mobility, which is a good thing. And it's also a fun way to play the game again, but it's not that different. Toadette is still very much like the other characters, just Peachette is a more overpowered squirrel suit.
Right.
But then there's also Nabbit, and Nabbit can't take damage. Nabbit will literally run through every single enemy, But he's not like an invincibility power-up. Like, if you touch an enemy, you'll just go through them. You won't kill anybody. Unless he jumps on their heads. And he also can't pick up any power-ups, which, I don't know, I think that makes him a little bit dull in a way.
Yeah, well, so much of Mario is about the power-ups and how those change the gameplay.
Yeah, so I suppose Nabbit's for the person who maybe doesn't really want to, like, get involved in the game, but still wants to, like, join in. And maybe it's a good way for, like, people who aren't necessarily that good at Mario. But yeah, I don't know, I found him just a bit too limited to really be fun. And I suppose also another thing about about Toadette is no one else can pick up the Super Crown. So if someone else touches it, I believe they just get points. They do not get the Squirrel Suit power-up. So yeah, the Super Crown is just for Toadette. I was playing co-op, and when someone hit a question mark box, the mushroom and a Super Crown came up, and they could not get the Super Crown, so they could only get the mushroom.
So what happens if Toadette grabs an acorn then, instead of the Super Crown?
So I believe she actually just turns into Peachette again. So I think there's a bit of a bias with the Super Crown and the acorn. Like, Toadette can do whatever she wants.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. Are we 100% sure on that, though, or...?
I'm not 100%, but there was never a time where I grabbed a power-up and didn't turn into Peachette.
Got it.
So I'm pretty... I'm leaning towards that she can just pick up anything, but... Yeah, well, we'll wait until we have more of a hands-on preview, really.
Does Toadette feel different any other way, or does she feel like just any other standard character until she gets the Super Crown?
Yeah, she basically feels the exact same as anybody else, until she gets the Super Crown. So the Super Crown is what really makes her easier, but when you're just playing as standard when you're just playing as standard Toadette, she doesn't really change all that much. So I guess that easy moniker they've given her may not really be that applicable until you get your power-ups. And what's also interesting is the demo was split into two different forms. So there was 4 levels from New Super Mario Bros. U, and 4 levels from New Super Luigi U. And every character in Luigi U has Luigi's physics, so even Toadette. Everyone would just sort of jump up with this flutter jump. And I can't remember if that was the case in New Super Luigi U when playing multiplayer. It probably was. But you can play as Mario now in Luigi U, which I think it was just the Toads at the time that you could play as in multiplayer.
You could also play as Nabbit in New Super Luigi U.
True, and I suppose this is the first time Nabbit's playable in New Super Mario Bros.
Right.
U.
So does he feel the same then, from what you remember of New Super Luigi U? Like there's no change, I'm guessing, with Nabbit?
Yeah, there's no change. He's just a big invincible fella who can't grab power-ups. But apart from that, this is still very much the same game that was on Wii U, but it is now in 1080p. But I'm not sure this kind of style really exaggerates the resolution, because it basically looks how I remember. I mean, playing Tropical Freeze, I could see it was cleaner, because there's so much detail in that game. Whereas New Super Mario Bros. U doesn't really have that detail to shine up.
Right.
So it's quite clearly, it looks sharper, especially on the character select screen. There's no jaggies anymore. But it still looks as I remember it, really, so I wouldn't say buy this for the resolution upgrade, because it basically is as you remember the game.
Alright, so yeah, that sounds about right. I fully expected it to still feel like New Super Mario Bros. U, for better or worse. Is there anything else about the game, though, you want to bring up that we haven't touched on here?
Well, I suppose that's kind of the gist of it, really. It's New Super Mario Bros. U with some light quality of life improvements. But yeah, it's still very much the same game. But I actually do like this game quite a lot. I know a lot of people are divisive on this series, but in terms of the 4 New Super Mario Bros. Games, I think U is the best by far out of all of those. And maybe if you haven't touched this series since the first one or Wii, then I think it's definitely worth giving a chance. It's just a nice, jolly, bright, colourful game with some really interesting level design too. And I think it's going to really lend itself well to a single Joy-Con. It's going to be a great game just to share with friends when playing on the go, and in that sense, it lends itself quite well to the Switch. But one question I do have for the final product is how they're going to address some of the gamepad challenges, because there were a few separate modes where you'd basically work through the game while it's auto-scrolling, and you're incentivized to use the gamepad to put blocks down. I think that's the only area where maybe the gamepad will feel missed. But who knows, maybe they'll replace that with something else.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if most people even remembered that, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, you can quite easily play through this entire game and never think about the gamepad features. Like, I will not miss them.
I guess they could, if they wanted to, use a Joy-Con as a pointer, perhaps, have a fifth player hop in and just have them point at the screen where they want a platform to appear.
Yeah, I suppose that's possible too. But yeah, it was never an integral feature, and even at the time, it kind of felt like a forced-in gimmick.
Right, yeah, that is definitely my recollection of it. So, alright, John, well, thanks for telling us about your playtime with the game. It sounds like, it sounds like this might as well be the definitive version of New Super Mario Bros. U, in that it only seems like an improvement, and there seems to be really no... it doesn't seem to be missing anything beyond the gamepad functionality, which honestly was kind of broken anyway, so I don't know if we're really missing that much. And on that note, I think we're about done here, so thanks for watching. Of course, stay tuned to GameXplain for lots more on New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe and everything else on Nintendo Switch as well. We'll catch you later.